Statutory interpretation. Only the legislative organ of the government makes law, whereas the judicial only interprets them. In practice, when a given law is made, nobody knows the extent of its application until it has been proven upon by the court in the process of interpreting same. For instance, if a statute, law made by the legislative arm, prohibits the movement of vehicles at certain hours on every last Saturday of the month, if a person is apprehended while pushing his car on the road during the prohibited period, will that amount to movement of vehicle as prohibited by law? What if another person is caught riding a bicycle during the prohibited hour? Will bicycle amount to vehicle within the context of that law? This is usually left for the court to interpret. However, in ordinary life, if someone said something you did not understand, you will ask the person to explain himself fully. But in statutory interpretation, you don't have to ask the legislature to explain what they have enacted, because whenever they enact law, such law, it becomes active and operational. In Nigeria, the judiciary arm has been authorized to interpret the laws. Basically, judiciary are not concerned as to ascertain the intended meaning or what the legislature meant to say, but the meaning of what they have said. For instance, the general notion of building is clear, but it may not be easy for a judge to decide whether a temporary wooden hut or telephone kiosk is a building. If he decides that it is a building or not, he is adding interpretation to the statute because he is not the legislature. Based on this, in order to ascertain the meaning of legislation, there are rules which can be applied. These are the rules used in the interpretation of statute: literal rule, golden rule, and mischief rule. Literal rule. According to literal rule, words used in statute should be interpreted literally. That is to say, the words should be interpreted in their ordinary meaning and its grammatical construction, where the words are clear and unambiguous. Moreover, if the words are used in relation to trade or business, it should be interpreted in its meaning in relation to trade and business. Thus, a judge should not add or remove in the course of his or her interpretation inasmuch as the words are used in its day-to-day grammatical sense, and it is clear and unambiguous. This can be best illustrated using the case of Awolowo against Shagari. Golden Rule. This is the most useful rule in the interpretation of statute. Golden Rule states that court in the course of interpreting the statute should first of all adhere to ordinary meaning of words used in the statute and to the grammatical construction, unless it would lead to any manifest absurdity and repugnance, or is at variance with the intention of the legislature. The court can modify or interpret it in a way to avert such injustice. Accordingly, where the words to be interpreted are ambiguous, it is the court's duty to interpret the words in such a manner so as to avoid absurdity. This can be best illustrated using the case of Beck against Smith. Mischief rule. Mischief is the third rule of the statutory interpretation, which states that, in the interpretation of the statute, the judges should look at the position of the common law and find out the mischief which the statute intended to remedy. Thus, the statute would be construed in such a manner as to suppress the mischief and advance the remedy. For the application of mischief rule in the interpretation of statute, we consider these. What was the law before the statute? What is the mischief that the statute intends to remedy? What is the remedy? And what is the true reason for the remedy? Then the judge will interpret the statute in a way to suppress the mischief and advance the remedy. This can be illustrated in the case of Smith against Hughes, where law was to stop prostitution. Thus it was interpreted that women soliciting from balcony are liable since the mischief was to stop prostitution. Noscitura socis rule. This rule is subsumed under the literal rule. It states that in the interpretation of the statute, that the meaning of the words is known within context in which the words are used. For instance, the word ring has no specific meaning in isolation, but the meaning becomes clear in a context such as ring the bell or Sean bought a wedding ring for Susan. A justum generis rule. This simply means of the same kind. This rule states that the meaning of any general words depends on any specific word that precedes it. In other words, where particular words of the same class are followed by general word, the general words must be construed to be similar in meaning to the particular words. For instance, a man gave his wife a large sum of money and instructed her to buy yourself a hat, coat, shoes, and anything else you need. Obviously, the man cannot expect the wife to buy any other thing except articles of clothing and dressing. Similarly, where the particular words are followed by general words, goat, dog, lion, or other things, it is obvious that car cannot be other things. Expression unius est exclusion ulterius. This simply means the expression of words implies the exclusion of others. In this rule, where specific words are used and are not followed by general word, those ones that are not mentioned are not included. The act applies on the instances mentioned. For example, if Femi tells Kate, "I am going to give you my house in Lagos and Abuja, and the furniture in my house in Lagos," it is clear that the furniture in the Abuja house is excluded in the gift. Those things mentioned puts to death those things that are not mentioned. General rule, lex non cogit ad impossibilia. It is a general rule that the judge in the course of interpreting the statute should interpret it to command what is impossible.